back here to the show. We are obviously in the Bait Lab. Bait Lab presentations brought to you by Sportco and Outdoor Emporium. Of course, pretty much everything you see here on the table you can find at Sportco and OE. And I suggest you look them up, go in store or online and get what you need. Now, we have the annual trout opener happening this coming weekend here in Washington, the Lowland Lake opener, April 27th this year. It's always the fourth Saturday of April. Keep that in mind, okay? Millions of trout planted in hundreds of lakes around the entire state, east and west, and there are going to be 300,000 plus people out going after them, and it's going to be a very busy day. So you want to have success, and I want to talk to you about options for trolling. We got a lot of gear on the table in front of us that we can talk about. We try to get through as much of this as we can in the short amount of time we have. Let's start with the fishing rod, okay? Of course, you guys know we are with Edge. Yes, they make trout rods as well. The KFTR 901. This is a 9-foot trolling rod. It's a graphite rod. You don't put it in a downrigger, but it's fantastic for flatlining, adding a little weight to, and going after trout. Who doesn't want to use a 9-foot rod? I really love using this in my rotation for my side planers. It gets, it gets it out there. Lots of ability to get it out of the clip once you get a fish on. It's rated at 1 to 4 pounds. Fantastic rod to use. And one worth checking into. Of course, you can also use kokanee rods. This is the HSR 7111, 7 foot, 11 inches. It's a 6 to 15. Don't let that fool you. It's kokanee, it's summer run steelhead, it's sockeye. It works for them all. Loaded up in the downrigger, and it's a fantastic choice. And can even put a little lead on there in your troll to use this to your benefit as well. So you got some great options there. How about getting our presentation down to where these fish are going to be? Well, we all know these early trout, especially the planters, they're not going very deep, man. They haven't acclimated to their surroundings all that much. They're in that 5, 10, 15 foot of the water column, so they're pretty easy to target. We're going to talk about dodgers here in a minute, but one thing we can do is add a little bit of weight to our presentation in line. I like to hang a little bit of lead on my main line there for the presentation to pull it down a little further. I do that by utilizing the VIP little lock slider. This thing works great. I put a dual lock on the bottom of that, and I can clip a 1/2 ounce or a 1 ounce cannonball onto there. Simply slide your line through there, and then I pin it basically with bobber stops because I don't want it sliding back and forth. I want it to stay in its position where I need to have it. And when I'm running dodgers in part of my presentation with lures behind, I run that at least 3 feet in front of the dodger. If I'm running small plugs or spinners or something like that, I'll put it out there at least 5 feet in front of the lure. I want that lure to impart all its own action. I don't want the weight to be in the way of giving it its maximum movement. Same with dodgers. I want them to perform as they're designed. 3 feet out in front of the dodger is going to work great. Hook up whatever behind your dodger. This here is the the Gold Diver Down. I keep forgetting that one. Scott's going to kill me. But the Gold Diver Down is a great looking, let me show you this one, great looking little lure. It's got the orange, got the gold, got the white, works fantastic. For kokanee as well, but the trout really seem to go after this thing, especially over there on the east side, those bigger trout out of Roosevelt and whatnot. So make sure you give that one a go. It has all the colors that trout really are drawn to. But, as far as what we're dragging, so I have Brad's Dodgers, I have Sling Blades, I have Max Double D. And the cool thing about Dodgers is, depending on the design and the manufacturer, they do actually take your presentation down several feet. It can be anywhere between 5 and 10 feet of additional depth just by dragging a Dodger 100 to 150 feet behind your boat. You couple that with a little bit of lead out in front of it, you're getting down anywhere between 15 and 20 feet in some cases on your troll, depending on your speed. So let's talk a little bit about the Dodgers. The Brads work fantastic. They got a lot of really good colors, UVs and golds that do really well in attraction for trout. The Sling Blades are great because you can actually run those at a higher speed. You can take those up over 2.2 miles per hour, and they're going to continue to perform, where some other Dodgers might start spinning in rotation. The Double D Dodgers work great, impart a lot of action. They have different pull points that you can use to move your presentation away from the boat. That is always a great option as far as how to present your gear if you don't want to drag a big cowbell or a lot of extra weight on these extremely light rods. You want to enjoy the fishery and have fun. So I like to drag things behind the Dodgers. And what are we doing? Well, the Brad's cut plugs work fantastic. These Cha-Cha Squidders by Max Lure work really well. They already have a smile blade on them, little hoochie on there. Put some bait, Potchke's trout eggs and or the fire corn. You can put that on. Works great, it's durable, it stays on. Any and all of these lures, you know, anytime you take your kokanee lures with your small LP squids and you have gold on these silver horde LP squids that you tie up, put the gold blade on there, you're definitely going to catch trout, especially in the sunshine. Trout have a hard time refusing anything with UV and of course gold flash, so to speak. The flatfish work great. The F4s, 5, 6, and 7s trolled behind the boat, slower speeds, you know, 1.5 miles per hour, 1.3 with the weight out in front of it. Spinners work fantastic. You can troll a rooster tail all day long. Put a little weight out in front of it. A MEP spinner, the old classic brass and red MEP spinner. If you don't want to deal with bait and all that stuff and just troll, spinners work fantastic. Small plugs work fantastic. Check out the Brad's little plugs in the minis. The stuff works great, and you're gonna, the little wigglers, that's what I'm trying to say. The little wigglers are great for trout. They got a ton of different colors, things to look into. So you have a wide variety, got a lot of options. You know what, use weight, don't use weight. Use a Dodger instead of a cowbell. Get your presentation down where the fish are gonna be, and the kids are gonna have a lot more fun pulling them in on lighter gear and these types of setups. Okay, don't go anywhere, we're gonna jump out for a quick break. We come back, I'll have cleared the table. We're gonna talk bait and casting from shore and some options you have to get on these trout. After the break, right here, Fish on Northwest. All right, welcome back here in the Bait Lab. Part 2 of tonight's Bait Lab presentation. We're still talking trout, and you know, we went over a large variety of options that you can utilize on the troll for getting trout. Now, not all of us have boats, and we may need to fish off a dock or a bank, or you know, you can even utilize some of these techniques out of your boat if you don't want to necessarily troll. So we're talking about casting, you know, spinners, plugs, lures from the bank and or again from the boat, fishing bait, just some different options. And dads, trust me, you're gonna like this little knockoff I have utilized with my Atlas Mike's mesh and my fire bait, my Potchke's fire bait for the last several years. It's gonna save you a lot of time. We'll get into that. So let's talk about fishing rods. You know, I really like something that is 8.5 foot, believe it or not, for trout, 2 to 6 pounds, 1 to 4 pounds, something like that. It's got great castability. You know, fishing, casting spinners, man, it's hard to meet a lot of things that MEPS puts out for trout nowadays. So, you know, reds and brasses and things like that, casting those with a rod that's conducive to get it out there quite a distance. You know, you don't need to spool it up with anything heavier than say 6 or 8 pound mainline. Fish like 4 pound leaders, probably gonna perform pretty well. Some things you can do to enhance your castability and or depth if you're fishing offshore in some deeper water or casting from a boat, you know, putting an inline sinker snapped onto your swivel. An inline sinker like we would use for, say, float fishing works fantastic. 2 to 3 foot leader down to, this one just happens to be a wicked lure, hoochie and spinner combination, but I can really throw that thing out there, much like salmon fishing with an inline sinker. I can use 1/4 ounce, half, 3/8, something like that to really get it out there in a slow retrieve. You're not only going to get a lot of action on your lure, you're going to get, put that over here, a little bit more depth is what you're going to find. Let's look at some options here that we have. Here's those Brad's wigglers I was talking about earlier and forgot to put on the table. The wee and of course the little wiggler. Those work great on the troll and or, as I was just talking about, casting with a weight out in front of them. You can actually cast them pretty far. Get them on the retrieve. Most of your flatfish are buoyant or slow sinking, so putting a weight out in front of those, yes, you can actually cast them if you're not trolling them, and you will catch a lot of trout on a slow retrieve casting those with a weight. And of course, most of your spinners, rooster tails, your MEPs, your blue foxes, they cast just fine without any weight out in front of them. You know, brass, when you got full sun, you know, something silver, if it's cloudy, don't be afraid to fish your brighter lures, your yellows and oranges, bright lures that pop when you have quite a bit of sunlight. Those bright lures attract. When it's light, fish light. When it's dark, fish darker lures. That's the old adage. Let's talk a little bit about bait. We got a lot of options here. Potskis comes out with a ton, produces a ton of different eggs. You know, they own the Atlas mics now, so we got these larger, you know, it's like a 10 millimeter, 8 millimeter egg that looks or resembles a bead, but they have UV, they're scented. They work fantastic. You can have a large variety of different scents. Shrimp scents work so well in your trout application. Don't overlook some of these UV glow mics by Atlas mics. These larger trout eggs, they really work well. Of course, the old adage, the balls of fire from back in the day. Now remember, eggs that are cooked like this typically will sink. So we're not fishing them off the bottom. We can fish them under a float. We can fish them with a marshmallow, something like that to give them buoyancy, but they're not gonna float. When we wanna utilize floating baits, I stick with the Potskis fire bait. It works so well. A lot of the scents that they've added to them are krill and garlic in a variety of colors that you can utilize. Now, the best way to fish this with durability is to put it on a small treble hook, like a size 10 or a size 12. You pull out some bait, meld it around the hook, and it holds on fairly well because of the 3 prongs. That works good. That being said, as you cast it out, retrieve it, or catch fish, you know, you're only going to get 1 or 2 uses out of that bait, 2 at the most. The fish peck at it, it comes off, and it gets quite messy. Do yourself a favor, and this is something that I've changed up to. First of all, I get rid of the treble hook. And one thing I'm excited about this year is I'm going to start actually fishing these Gamakatsu bead hooks because of the wide gap and the bend. These are a great trout hooks, size 4, size 6. Really going to work well when fishing bait for trout, guaranteed. Now, one thing I do is I take the Atlas mics netting, okay? This is the spawn bag, and we're gonna take a little bit of our Potskis fire bait, and we're gonna roll that into a small ball, okay? We're gonna put that in the middle there, and I'm gonna pick the corners up on this, and basically tie in a small spawn bag with the Potskis trout bait. Why? Well, because it ties it into that bag and makes it much more durable. And you're going to see also, as far as application, I can, well, that didn't work so well. I can put that on a single hook because the net mesh really works well in holding that all together. So then we're just going to take that. Now, creating this is a little bit messy, okay? But once you have them all in the jar and we're fishing them, it's not going to be messy at all. So I can make a variety of colors, sizes. These are all in the spawn bag. And simply by taking that spawn bag, set that over here, and grab my single hook, all right? I can literally just put that single hook through that mesh. And now that is going to hang on that as a bait. It's going to float it up. Okay, we're using lead on the bottom, sinker of some sort on the bottom to allow that to float up. Those hooks are so light, this dough bait will definitely, this fire bait will definitely float it up. Something else you can do when you're choosing weight or a way of rigging weight, so you can put the egg sinker in line, and that's fine. Of course, once it's on there, you know, you got to cut your line to change it out. You can also use an inline barrel swivel and then a barrel swivel with a clasp. And I like to just put that second swivel on there as a slider protected by 2 beads. And that is my slider. That'd be like fishing that egg sinker, although this gives me the ability with that snap swivel on there to change that weight out if I want to go from a quarter to a half, or, you know, God forbid I need a full ounce. But it allows me the opportunity to cast farther if I need to, get down in deeper water if I can change that weight out and put on a little bigger weight. So give the Atlas mics spawn net a try when you're preparing your fire bait. It's going to fish a lot longer, and Dad, Mom, you're not going to have to swap out the kids' bait so often. You're going to get a lot more mileage out of it. Okay, there's a few more additional items you can go ahead and give a try when you're out fishing trout as the season starts or through the summer. That's going to do it for us here in the Bait Lab. Jump it out for a quick break. We'll be back in studio right after this.